Yazdegerd fled, not with a royal procession, but with a handful of guards and courtiers, from Holwan to Ray, from Isfahan to Khorasan. With every step eastward, the memory of Sasanian glory faded behind him. Ctesiphon wasn't just bricks and gold. It was identity. It was power. It was the soul of pre-Islamic Iran. Its fall wasn't just a military defeat. It was a funeral for a way of life, a 1,000-year legacy toppled in a storm of belief, exhaustion, and destiny. But what happened to Yazdegerd? How did a king without a kingdom survive the ruins of his world? Ctesiphon had fallen. The empire was bleeding. But Yazdegerd III hadn't given up. With the fire of his ancestors still burning, he rallied the remnants of a shattered world, gathering warriors, nobles, and hope from the far corners of Iran. He had one last card to play, and he would play it at Nahavand. In 642 CE, on the plains of Nahavand, the fate of ancient Persia stood on the edge of a blade. The Sasanian army was vast, banners stretching to the horizon. Their ranks were filled with battle-hardened men. Their commander, Piruzan, tactician, veteran, loyal to the very end. And behind the lines, watching, waiting, stood Yazdegerd himself. The empire's last breath was about to meet the rising storm of the new world. The Persians played it smart. They chose a battlefield shielded by mountains, guarded by marshes, a natural fortress. They burned the surrounding lands, cut off supplies, and waited. Meanwhile, the Muslims, led by Numan ibn Muqarrin, moved with patience and precision. They weren't just fighting an army, they were dismantling a legacy. The Muslims feigned retreat, the Persians chased, but what they ran into, it was a trap. Hidden trenches, ambushes, and wave after wave of warriors driven by faith, not fortune. In the heart of the chaos, Numan himself charged forward, a lion among shields. And there, he fell, martyred, but his blood didn't halt the army. It ignited them. Screams rose across the battlefield. Persian lines buckled. Formation turned to frenzy. Resistance turned to retreat. The Sasanian army, the last true army of ancient Iran, was shattered, its generals dead, its spirit broken. Nahavand wasn't just a defeat, it was the death of an era. From this moment on, there would be no more grand Sasanian armies, no imperial counteroffensives, only scattered nobles, isolated forts, and the fading echoes of what once was. They called it Fath al-Futu, the victory of victories, because it didn't just win a war, it turned a page in history. With Nahavand, the doors to central and eastern Iran were flung wide open. The empire was no longer dying. It was gone. Nahavand silenced the drums of empire, but it did not silence the soul of Persia. What followed was not erasure, but rebirth. The fall of the Sasanian crown marked the end of imperial power, but not of Persian identity. This wasn't the death of a civilization. It was the beginning of transformation. When the Muslims entered Iran, they didn't come to burn libraries or erase the past. They came with a new message, a faith built on monotheism, equality, and justice. But they also stepped into a land with millennia of thought, art, and complexity. And instead of clashing violently, something rare happened. A fusion began. The conquerors didn't impose belief at sword point. Instead, they offered a choice: convert, or pay jizya, a tax in exchange for protection, autonomy, and freedom of worship. This policy, controversial to some, was radically different from past conquerors who demanded forced conversion or exile. In many ways, it was the beginning of a social contract. Zoroastrians kept their fire temples. Mobads still led prayers. It wasn't absolute freedom, but it wasn't annihilation either. Over the centuries, Islam didn't erase Persian culture. It absorbed it, enriched it, and in turn was reshaped by it. Persian language, poetry, and philosophy soon became central pillars of the Islamic Golden Age. This wasn't a submission, it was synthesis. Out of the ashes of empire, something remarkable began to stir. Not silence, but dialogue. Not destruction, but weaving. The Arabic script flowed into Persian hands, and the Persian tongue sang through Arabic letters. From Pahlavi to the new script, a fusion emerged, rich, complex, and alive. Words were not just borrowed, they were embraced, transformed, elevated. Thousands of Arabic terms entered Persian, and in return, Persian gave back words of governance, architecture, astronomy, concepts that had matured in the royal courts of Ctesiphon. This wasn't just conquest, it was a collaboration. In Baghdad's Bait al-Hikmah, the House of Wisdom, Persian, Greek, Indian, and Arab minds gathered under the same roof. Scrolls turned to whispers, whispers turned to revolutions of thought. And from this cross-cultural soil, giants began to rise. Men whose minds shaped empires, whose books traveled from Cordoba to China. They weren't simply Muslim scholars. They were Iranian lights guiding an Islamic sky. Ibn Sina, Avicenna, born in Bukhara, crowned the Prince of Physicians. His canon of medicine would be read in East and West for over 600 years. He healed bodies, shaped philosophies, and carved a path for reason in an age of faith. Avicenna wasn't just a doctor. He was a universe of knowledge written in ink. Then came al-Biruni from Khorasan, fluent in Persian, Arabic, Sanskrit, and Greek. He mapped the earth, measured the stars, and explored the human soul through science. From India's rituals to the moon's arc, Biruni searched and questioned everything. His curiosity had no borders. But not all genius came in numbers or laws. Some of it came wrapped in poetry and literature and metaphor. In Shiraz, centuries after the battles faded, a poet whispered eternal truths, Hafez Shirazi. His pen didn't glorify kings or war. It revealed the heart, longing, burning, questioning. He stitched Quranic verses into love songs. His verses were rebellion and devotion in the same breath. My beloved, who neither went to school nor wrote with a pen, taught hundreds of scholars with a mere glance. A subtle echo of Surah Al-Ankabut, verse 48. The heavens could not bear the burden of trust. The lot of the task fell upon me, the madman. Another mirror, this time of Surah Al-Ahzab, verse 72. This was no cultural collapse. This was metamorphosis. Islam did not erase Iran. It invited it in. And Iran responded, not with resistance, but with poetry, philosophy, and light. Together they shaped the golden age of Islam. Together they changed the world. So what was the peak of this Persian Islamic fusion? Baghdad, a city born from Iranian hands, ruling a world connected by Persian minds. The Abbasids came to power with Persian help, a revolution led by Abu Muslim of Khorasan. And they didn't forget it. They embraced Persian culture. They revived Sasanian court customs. They leaned on Persian viziers to run the state. Baghdad wasn't just their capital, it was a collaboration. Iran lost an empire, but helped build a civilization. From calligraphy to chemistry, poetry to politics, its fingerprints are etched into the soul of Islam. A legacy not of conquest, but of contribution. But how did this golden city, Baghdad, become the stage for one of the greatest stories ever told? In the next episode of How Islam Was Conquered, we'll enter the realm of 1001 Nights, a magical reflection of Baghdad's soul. From Scheherazada's voice to the Caliph's court, get ready to discover the dream that shaped generations. Subscribe and step into the tale